Money doesn't vanish with fireworks. It disappears in whispers. A late notice slid under the door. The final reminder stamped in red. The phone call you stop answering because your chest tightens every time it rings. By the time my father admitted the truth, our apartment had already been living it for months. The heater stayed off. The fridge held more air than food. Even the walls looked tired, paint peeling like it wanted to leave. I stood in the corner of the living room because corners are where you learn things. Corners keep you quiet. Corners let you see who a person becomes when they think no one is watching. My name is Alyssa Grant. I'm 26. I used to design brand identities for small businesses, logos, packaging, campaigns. I knew how to make something look trustworthy. I also knew how quickly trust can be faked. My father, Daniel Grant, had always been good at faking it too. He wasn't evil. He wasn't even brave. He was just weak in the way some people are weak. Always chasing the next quick fix, the next almost win, the next promise that tomorrow would be different if today could just hold on. That night, the living room smelled like stale coffee and panic. My father sat on the couch, wringing his hands until the knuckles turned white. A folder lay open on the table. I didn't have to read the numbers to know we were finished. I'd seen his bank statements. I'd seen the loans he thought I wouldn't notice. I heard the door open. No knock. No announcement. Just the quiet click of a lock giving up. Two men stepped inside first. They didn't scan the room like burglars. They moved like they owned airspace. One stayed near the door. The other stood by the hallway that led to the bedrooms, blocking the route without being obvious about it. Then he entered. He didn't wear a flashy suit. Just clean lines, dark fabric, the kind of tailoring that doesn't need logos to prove it costs more than my father's entire year. His hair was neatly cut. His face was calm. His eyes were the color of old wood, dark and unreadable. He looked less like a gangster and more like the man who hires gangsters. My father stood too fast, then seemed to realize his legs couldn't support his fear. He sat again like gravity had made a decision. Mr. Cade, my father whispered. So that was his name. Ronan Cade. People didn't say it the way they said normal names. They said it like a warning you pass along to someone you still care about. Ronan took my father's armchair without asking. He didn't lounge. He didn't spread out. He sat like a verdict. Daniel, he said, voice low, almost polite. The deadline was noon. My father swallowed hard. I know. I'm just the market turned. The deal fell through. I just need. You've had 3 extensions. My father's eyes darted around the room, as if the peeling wallpaper could offer him a loophole. Please, 2 days. I can fix it in 2 days. Ronan's fingers tapped the armrest once. Not anger, just emphasis. You borrowed from someone else to pay my interest, Ronan said, which means you're not fixing anything. You're sinking. My father's face crumpled. I don't have the money. Ronan's gaze shifted, not to the broken TV, not to the cheap furniture, to the only thing in the room that looked like it still had a future. Me. I felt my throat tighten, but I didn't move. I'd learned long ago that panic gives other people control. Who is that? Ronan asked. My father turned like he'd forgotten I existed until this moment. That's Alyssa. My daughter. Ronan's eyes traveled from my sneakers to my face. They didn't pause on anything the way men sometimes do. There was no leering, no hunger, just evaluation, like I was a file he was deciding whether to open. How old? He asked me directly. 26, I answered, and my voice surprised me by how steady it was. Ronan nodded slightly, like he'd confirmed a detail. My father made a sound that was half sob, half laugh. I have no money, he choked out. I have nothing left. Please, I'm begging you. Ronan leaned back by a fraction. Then we discussed alternatives. My father's eyes flickered to me again, and I felt something inside my stomach drop into cold. No, not him. Not my father. He wouldn't. But then my father did what weak men do when their backs are against a wall. He reached for the nearest thing he could sacrifice that wasn't himself. She can work, he blurted out. She's smart. She's educated. She can help you. She can be useful. She'll. Ronan raised one hand. My father's words died mid-breath. Ronan stood, and the room seemed smaller immediately. He walked toward me slowly, not threatening, but inevitable. He stopped close enough that I could smell faint cologne. Clean, expensive, restrained. You heard what he said, Ronan told me. Not a question. I heard, I said. Ronan studied my face, searching for something. Tears, hysteria, begging. I gave him none. Fear lived in me. Yes, but it didn't own my mouth. My father doesn't get to trade me like furniture, I said. Ronan's gaze didn't change, but something in the air sharpened, like a blade being tested. Good, he said quietly, because that's not what I'm offering. I blinked. Offering? Ronan glanced back at my father, who was still half collapsed on the couch, eyes wide and desperate. Daniel can't pay me, Ronan said, and I don't accept fantasy as currency. My father scrambled forward on his knees, frantic. Please, Mr. Cade. Ronan cut him off with a look, then returned his attention to me. When money is gone, he said, people get hurt. Most of the time, it's the people who can't protect themselves. His eyes held mine. I can protect you, he said, but protection has terms. I didn't trust him. Trust wasn't something I handed out because a man spoke softly. What terms? I asked. Ronan's voice stayed calm. You come with me. You live under my roof. You work for me. You're seen with me in public when needed. In return, your father's debt is cleared. My lungs forgot how to breathe. So I'm payment. Ronan's jaw tightened slightly. No, you're leverage. That's not better. It's more honest, he replied. I stared at him, and for a moment my life split into two paths. One path was staying here, waiting for the next creditor, the next knock, the next moment my father decided my body was the last thing left to sell. The other path was stepping into a cage made of luxury and rules. Both were cages, but only one had locks I could see. Ronan's gaze didn't soften. Pack a bag, he said. Essentials only. My father exhaled in relief like he'd been saved. I didn't look at him. I looked at Ronan and said the only sentence I could still control. If I'm going to survive this, I survive it on my own terms. Ronan paused, then nodded once, like he respected a language he also spoke. Then you'd better choose your terms carefully, he said, and the dark offer began. The SUV was silent in a way that felt engineered. No rattling, no squeaking. Even the road noise seemed to bounce off the tinted windows and die before it reached us. I held my duffel bag on my lap, like it could anchor me to reality. Ronan sat beside me, not too close, not too far. One of his men drove. Another sat in the front passenger seat, watching the mirrors like the world might try something stupid. I watched the city change as we moved. Streetlights brighter, roads cleaner, buildings taller. It felt like climbing into someone else's life. Ronan didn't speak until we crossed the bridge into downtown. You don't look surprised, he said. I've been poor a long time, I replied. Surprise is expensive. Ronan's mouth twitched, the closest thing to a smile that still carried caution. You're sharp. I'm tired, I corrected. He reached into his coat and pulled out a slim folder. This is the agreement. I stared at it. You carry contracts around? I carry certainty, he said, and handed it to me. I opened it slowly. The pages were typed in clean, legal language, but not designed to confuse. It was direct, which made it scarier. People who hide behind words are predictable. People who don't aren't. Term, 5 years. Role, personal assistant and public companion for appearances. Residence, Cade property, secure. Compensation, salary deposited weekly. Education stipend available. Boundaries, no physical intimacy required. Privacy respected. Personal room secured. Restrictions, no contact with Daniel Grant. No external travel without security. Non-disclosure. I read it twice to make sure my eyes weren't lying. You wrote no physical intimacy required, I said. Yes. And you expect me to believe it. Ronan met my eyes. I expect you to read. I tapped the clause. Then why put it in at all? Because you're not naive, he said. And because men who force people don't need paperwork. They need a locked door. My throat tightened. That sounded almost decent. Almost. And if I refuse? I asked. Ronan's voice stayed steady. Then you go back to that apartment. Your father keeps drowning. Someone else collects. Someone less patient. Someone who thinks a dark offer means your screams. The word screams landed like a slap. Not because he said it with cruelty, but because he said it like truth. I looked back down at the contract. This still makes me collateral. It makes you protected collateral, he corrected. Same thing. No, he said softly. Collateral has value, which means I don't waste it. I hated the way my stomach reacted to that, like safety had its own addictive pull. Like my body wanted to surrender to the idea of warmth and food and not being afraid of the phone. We arrived at a building that didn't have a sign. Just a sleek entrance and a guard who nodded the moment Ronan's car approached, as if the city itself had been trained to recognize him. Inside, the elevator required a code and a palm scan. Ronan used both without comment. At the penthouse, the doors opened into a space so quiet it felt sacred. Marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, a skyline view that made my old neighborhood feel like a story someone else told. I should have felt thrilled. I felt exposed. Ronan didn't lead me through the home like a tour guide. He moved like a man who believed in boundaries. He showed me the kitchen, fully stocked. The living room, minimal, clean. A hallway with closed doors. Then he stopped at one door and opened it. This is yours, he said. My room. It was bigger than my entire apartment. A bed with crisp linens. A desk. A private bathroom. A closet already holding a few simple clothes. Neutral colors, no branding, nothing flashy. But what caught my eye wasn't the luxury. It was the lock. A heavy deadbolt. On the inside. You can lock it, Ronan said, as if he'd read my thoughts. I turned to him. Why? Because I don't want you living here afraid of me, he said. Fear makes mistakes. Mistakes get people hurt. I'm already afraid, I admitted. Ronan didn't deny it. Good. Fear will keep you alive until you learn the rules. I looked at the contract again. What are the rules? Ronan's eyes sharpened. Rule 1, you don't lie to me. I can work with anger. I can work with hatred. I can't work with dishonesty. And if I break Rule 1, he didn't threaten me. He didn't need to. His voice was quiet. Then you become a risk. Risks get removed. I swallowed. Ronan stepped back, giving me space. You'll have a salary. You'll have food. You'll have security. You'll have a future that isn't controlled by your father's debts. I clenched my fists. And my freedom? Ronan held my gaze. Limited. For now. He turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. One more thing, he said. When you're in public with me, people will watch you to find weakness. Don't give them any. He left, and the door clicked shut behind him. I stood alone, in a room that smelled like new sheets and expensive silence, staring at the lock. Then I did the first thing that belonged only to me. I turned it. The deadbolt slid into place with a heavy, final sound. And for the first time in years, I realized I could breathe without listening for footsteps. The first week was the strangest kind of peace. Nothing demanded me. No landlord. No collection calls. No father stumbling in with an apology that smelled like lies. Instead, there were schedules. Ronan's assistant, Maris, arrived every morning with a tablet and a calm expression like she trained her emotions to stay behind glass. Breakfast is at 9 if you want it, she told me. Security details are posted by the elevator. Your phone has limited access. Mr. K prefers internal lines. Does he prefer breathing too? I muttered. Maris's eyes flickered. Breathing is permitted. She wasn't cruel, just professional, which somehow made everything feel more official. Like I'd signed up for a job I never applied to. By day 5, boredom started chewing on my nerves. I wasn't used to empty time. Empty time invites thoughts, and my thoughts were sharp. So I wandered. I didn't enter Ronan's office. I remembered Rule 1. Don't create problems you can't solve. But I found the library. It was lined with books that looked read, not decorative. Business, law, history, a section on art and antiques that surprised me. I ran my finger along spines and felt something stir in my brain, the old part of me that used to care about things besides survival. Then I saw it, a framed certificate on a side wall, next to a glass case holding a watch that looked like it could buy a house. The certificate claimed authenticity for a vintage poster series, rare, collectible. I leaned closer, and my designer instincts flared like an alarm. The typography was wrong. Not different style wrong. Modern replication wrong. The kerning, the ink bleed, the paper grain. Whoever forged it knew enough to fool amateurs, but not enough to fool someone who spent years spotting counterfeit branding. I stared at it a long time, feeling an old anger rise. People like my father worshiped shortcuts. People like Ronan profited from them. I heard footsteps behind me, steady and unhurried. You found something, Ronan said. I turned. He stood in the doorway of the library, suit jacket off, sleeves rolled slightly, looking like he'd been cutting through meetings all day without letting them leave a mark. You keep fake certificates on your wall? I asked. Ronan's eyes narrowed. Is it fake? I walked to the certificate, pointed at the fine print. This line spacing isn't consistent with printing from that era. The seal is stamped with a modern polymer. And the signature, look at the stroke pressure. It's digitally replicated. Silence. Ronan stepped closer, not into my space, but near enough to study what I indicated. He didn't argue. He didn't dismiss. He examined. That should be impossible, he said quietly. It isn't, I replied. Fakes aren't about talent. They're about confidence. Most people don't want to admit they've been fooled. Ronan's gaze shifted from the certificate to me. How do you know this? I designed packaging for luxury products, I said. Half my job was making things look legitimate. The other half was spotting illegitimate copies. A beat of silence passed. Then Ronan asked, how many more do I have? I blinked. What? How many fakes? He repeated. In my assets. I almost laughed. You're asking the wrong person if you want comfort. Ronan's expression didn't change. I don't want comfort. He walked to a small cabinet and opened it. Inside were folders, documents, photos, receipts. A catalog of things acquired through settlements, I suspected. My organization holds property, Ronan said. Some legal, some not. If any of it is compromised, it creates weakness. I folded my arms. And weakness gets exploited. Ronan's eyes held mine. Exactly. I hesitated, then asked, why tell me? Ronan's answer was blunt. Because you already saw it. And because you're not afraid to say it. I stared at him. So my job is now fraud detection for a crime boss. Ronan didn't flinch. Your job is survival. This is one method. I hated how rational it sounded. I hated how part of me was relieved to be useful instead of ornamental. What do I get? I asked. Ronan's gaze sharpened again, not annoyed, interested. You're asking for leverage. I'm asking for respect. Ronan nodded once, slow. Fair. He walked to a desk in the corner and pulled out a slim card. Salary increases. Access to resources. And if you prove reliable, you'll have freedom inside my world. My stomach tightened. Freedom inside a cage is still a cage. Ronan's voice stayed calm. Then build yourself keys. I stared at him, and for the first time, I realized the dark offer wasn't just about controlling me. It was about reshaping me into something valuable enough that no one could casually destroy. Ronan turned to leave, then paused. One more thing, he said. What? His eyes met mine. Don't underestimate how many people will hate you for being useful to me. I swallowed. I'm already used to hate. Ronan's gaze softened by a fraction, so small I almost missed it. Good. Then you'll be ready. When he left, I stared at the fake certificate again. I'd spent my life being treated like collateral by my own father, something to pawn, something to bargain. Now I had a chance to become something else entirely. Not payment, not bait, a problem solver. And in Ronan Cade's world, problem solvers didn't disappear easily. The first public appearance wasn't announced like an event. It was delivered like an instruction. Maris handed me a dress bag at noon. Dinner tonight. Private room. Formal. What kind of dinner? I asked. The kind where people smile while measuring your throat, Maris said, flat as paper. I forced a humorless laugh. Helpful. The dress was simple, dark navy, elegant, not flashy. It wasn't meant to turn heads. It was meant to communicate a message. Controlled, expensive, untouchable. At 7, Ronan appeared at my door. He didn't knock timidly. He knocked once, firm, then waited. I opened it. He looked me over the way someone checks armor before battle. Good, he said. That's all I get? I asked. You get honesty, Ronan replied. I don't hand out compliments like candy. We arrived at a restaurant with no sign and too many cameras. Ronan's guards didn't look like guards. They looked like businessmen who happened to be able to end your life without spilling their drink. The private room was already occupied. 4 men stood when Ronan entered. They weren't afraid exactly, but they were careful. The kind of careful men become when they know power isn't theoretical. Ronan introduced them in clipped phrases. A port operator, a real estate fixer, a security consultant, and Gavin Pike, who smiled too much. Gavin's eyes landed on me and lingered in a way that made my skin feel dirty. Not overt, not crude, just entitled. And this, Ronan said, is Alyssa. Companion? Gavin asked, like he was asking what brand of wine we'd ordered. Ronan didn't answer immediately. He pulled out a chair for me with a subtle precision that made the room watch him instead of me. Then he sat. Consultant, Ronan said. Gavin chuckled. Consultant, sure. The waiter arrived with wine. Gavin waved off the menu. Bring the reserve bottle. The good one. The bottle arrived. The label was crisp. The glass heavy. The kind of thing people post online for status points. I didn't reach for my glass. I leaned slightly forward and stared at the label. Ronan noticed instantly. He didn't ask in front of everyone. He simply waited. My stomach tightened. If I spoke, I'd embarrass the restaurant and Gavin. If I stayed quiet, I'd betray my own instincts and Ronan's trust. The dark offer wasn't just protection. It was responsibility. I raised one hand slightly. Excuse me. Gavin frowned. What now? I looked at the waiter, then the bottle. This isn't the vintage you think it is. Silence hit the room like a dropped knife. Gavin laughed once. You're joking. I'm not, I said calmly. The label texture is wrong for this year. The embossing isn't deep enough. And the capsule, if this bottle were as old as it claims, oxidation would dull the metal. That's fresh. The waiter's face went pale. Gavin leaned forward. You're telling me my bottle is fake? I'm telling you someone is taking advantage of your desire to look important, I said evenly. A sharp inhale from one of the men. Someone coughed to hide a laugh. Gavin's smile vanished. Watch your mouth. Ronan still hadn't moved. His stillness was the most dangerous thing in the room. The waiter stammered. Sir, I can verify with the manager. Do it, Ronan said quietly. The waiter practically ran. Gavin turned to Ronan. You're letting her insult me? Ronan's eyes lifted. She's not insulting you. She's warning you. Gavin's jaw tightened. She's embarrassing me. Ronan leaned back slightly. Then stop buying your ego overpriced and hope no one notices. I swallowed. My pulse hammered. The room felt smaller. The waiter returned with the manager, who apologized too quickly and replaced the bottle. The new bottle arrived, and even I could see it was right. The label printing was subtly different. The capsule looked aged. The manager avoided Gavin's eyes. Gavin stared at me like he wanted to punish me for making him feel stupid. You think you're clever, he said. I met his gaze. I think you're predictable. That snapped something in him. He stood too fast, chair scraping. You don't speak to me like that. He took a step toward me. Before my body could decide whether to flinch, Ronan stood. Not quickly, not dramatically, just stood. The air changed. Ronan's voice dropped, soft and lethal. Sit down. Gavin hesitated. Ronan. I said, Ronan repeated, sit down. Gavin's pride battled his survival instincts for one long second. Then he lowered himself back into the chair, breathing hard. Ronan didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He didn't need to. He turned back to the table like nothing had happened. Now, Ronan said, we discussed the route. The meeting continued, but the power in the room had shifted. The men stopped looking at me like decoration. They looked at me like a tool Ronan valued, and tools Ronan valued were not to be touched. On the ride home, the city lights reflected off the SUV windows like streaks of fire. Ronan spoke without looking at me. You didn't hesitate. I did, I admitted. Inside. But you spoke anyway. I don't like being lied to, I said. Even when the lie is expensive. Ronan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, you're learning. Learning what? Ronan finally turned his head slightly. In my world, being right is dangerous, but being right quietly is powerful. I stared out at the skyline, my chest still tight, my hands still faintly trembling. I didn't come here to be powerful, I said. Ronan's voice was calm. You came here because money was gone. He paused, then added, almost like an afterthought. And now you have something else. What? Ronan's eyes stayed on the road ahead. Options. The dark offer was evolving, and I could feel the next part of the story approaching like thunder. Slow, heavy, inevitable. 2 weeks later, Ronan took me to a charity gala. It was the kind of event where wealth dressed itself in kindness. Crystal chandeliers, cameras, smiles that didn't reach eyes. The room was filled with people who donated money in public and made deals in private. Maris dressed me in a pale gold gown that looked like liquid light. I hated it. It's armor, she said as she clipped earrings onto my ears. You don't wear armor because you want attention. You wear it because you expect attack. Ronan wore a tuxedo like it was a uniform. When he offered me his arm, it wasn't romantic. It was strategic. The room watched us enter, and I felt eyes collect on me like insects on sugar. Ronan leaned close enough to speak without moving his lips. Stay close. I can handle a party, I whispered. Ronan's voice was almost gentle. This isn't a party. For the first hour, I played my role. Smile. Nod. Small talk. I let Ronan speak about business, as if it were philanthropy. I laughed at jokes that weren't funny. I watched hands and glances and patterns. Then a woman approached. She was beautiful in a hard way. Sharp cheekbones, emerald dress, diamonds like ice. Her smile was polite, but her eyes were predator calm. Alyssa Grant, she said. My stomach tightened. I hadn't used my last name since I arrived. Ronan had made sure of that. I don't think we've met, I said carefully. We haven't, she replied. I'm Serena Vale. Vale. My pulse spiked. Not related to Ronan, I realized, same last name by coincidence, or maybe not. But her confidence suggested she enjoyed confusion. She leaned in slightly. Your father sends his regards. The room blurred for half a second. My father doesn't know where I am, I said. Serena's smile sharpened. Your father knows plenty. Men like him always find a way to talk. I forced my voice to stay calm. What do you want? Serena slipped a folded note into my hand like it was a business card. Information. I didn't open it yet. My fingers went cold around the paper. Serena's voice lowered. Ronan moves assets. Everyone knows it. My people suspect there's a shipment tonight. We want the location and time. I don't know, I said truthfully. Serena's eyes narrowed just a fraction. Your father claims you do. My throat tightened. He's lying. Maybe. Serena shrugged delicately. But perception is a weapon. If I tell Ronan you're feeding your father information, what do you think happens? My skin prickled. I pictured Ronan's rule 1, don't lie. Don't become a risk. Serena's smile returned. Help us, and your father's smaller debt disappears. Refuse. And I deliver a story to Ronan that forces him to remove you. Remove. The word landed with frightening simplicity. Serena touched my wrist lightly. Just enough to feel like ownership, not enough to be obvious. 10 minutes, she whispered. Meet me in the ladies' lounge. She walked away, blending into the crowd like poison into champagne. I stood frozen, holding the folded note. My instinct screamed, hide it. Fix it alone. Don't bring trouble to Ronan. But I'd spent my whole life watching my father create disasters and then hide them until they became explosions. I wasn't doing that again. I turned and walked straight toward Ronan. He was speaking with a mayor-like figure and a man who looked like a banker. When he saw my face, the smile he wore for the room vanished instantly. Ronan excused himself without apology and stepped closer. What happened? I placed the folded note into his hand. A woman named Serena Vale. She used my father's name. She threatened to label me as a leak. Ronan unfolded the note, his eyes scanning it in a single efficient sweep. His jaw tightened. She gave you 10 minutes, he said, not asking. Yes. And you came to me. Yes. Ronan held my gaze longer than usual, reading me, measuring, testing. Then he nodded once. Good. My breath shook. Do you believe me? Ronan's voice was calm, but there was a current beneath it, protective and furious. I believe you because you didn't try to solve this alone. He handed the note to a guard who appeared like he'd been summoned by thought. Ronan murmured instructions I couldn't hear. The guard vanished. Ronan's hand pressed lightly at my back, guiding me. We're leaving. That'll look suspicious, I whispered. Ronan didn't care. Let them watch. We moved through the crowd. People stared. Whispers followed. The mayor-like figure looked offended. Ronan didn't look back. Outside, the night air hit my skin like a slap. The SUV door opened immediately. We slid inside, and the city noise muted the moment the door shut. Ronan exhaled once slow. They're trying to force you into being their tool. I'm already a tool, I said bitterly. Ronan's eyes flashed. No, you're a person under my protection. I swallowed hard. And my father? Ronan's face went still. Your father is a problem that just crossed into my world. The SUV rolled forward, and for the first time since I'd left my apartment, I felt the past reach out and touch the present. Money had been gone. Now consequences were arriving. Back at the penthouse, Ronan's calm became something else. Not panic, not rage, but tactical focus. He moved through the space like a man entering a battlefield he'd already mapped. Security increased within minutes. Additional guards arrived. Maris appeared with a tablet and a headset, speaking in short, coded phrases. The window's automated shades lowered partway, not fully closed, like even the night view was now considered a threat. Ronan turned to me. Sit. I didn't argue. My legs felt like they were made of water. He crouched slightly so his eyes were level with mine, not towering. That small gesture hit harder than any threat could have. Listen, he said quietly. They want to turn you into a wedge between me and my people. They want me to doubt you. I swallowed. What if you do? Ronan's gaze didn't waver. Then I'm not the man you think I am. My throat tightened. I hated how close that sounded to comfort. Maris approached. We identified Serena Vale. Not her real name. She's connected to the Vale Syndicate out of the East Docks. Ronan nodded. And my driver? Maris hesitated for half a second, enough to turn my stomach. We're running the check. Ronan's jaw tightened. Run it faster. My phone buzzed. My old burner, the one I'd kept out of habit and paranoia. I hadn't used it since arriving. I only turned it on tonight because Serena had used my father's name, and something in me wanted proof of who had access to my past. A message appeared. Dad, Alyssa. Don't trust anyone in his circle. They're setting you up. I didn't have a choice. My hand went cold. Ronan saw my face. What is it? I hesitated. Not because I wanted to hide it, but because saying my father texted me felt like tossing gasoline into an already burning room. Then I remembered Rule 1. I handed Ronan the phone. He read the message. His expression didn't change, but the air did, like pressure building in a sealed room. Your father has a way to contact you, Ronan said. I didn't give it to him, I said quickly. This is an old number. He must have. I don't know how he got it. Ronan nodded once. He's desperate. Desperate people do reckless things. Maris's headset crackled. She listened, then stiffened. Ronan looked at her. Speak. Maris swallowed. The driver has a second phone. Encrypted contacts. Recent calls to an unknown number tied to, she glanced at the tablet, the Vale Syndicate. My stomach dropped. Ronan's voice stayed calm, which was worse than shouting. So they were right about one thing. Someone in my circle is compromised. He turned to a guard. Bring the driver in. Quietly. The guard left. I stared at Ronan, my pulse thudding loud in my ears. This is because of me. Ronan's eyes cut to mine. No. This is because my enemies have been patient. They waited for a weak point. Your father provided one. You're just the thing they tried to weaponize. I clenched my fists. My father never stops. Ronan's voice was low. Then we stop him. The words were simple, and they carried a finality that made my skin prickle. I forced myself to ask, what happens to him? Ronan studied me carefully. What do you want to happen to him? No one had asked me that before. Not in a way that mattered. I thought of my father pointing at me in that living room. I thought of his relief when Ronan offered terms. I thought of years of excuses that left me paying for his mistakes. Then I thought of Serena's smile when she said perception is a weapon. I exhaled, slow. I want him to stop being able to trade me. Ronan nodded. Then he will. A guard returned. Driver is contained. He's denying everything. Ronan's expression remained flat. He can deny it to me in person. Minutes later, the driver was brought in. Hands visible, posture tense. He was a normal-looking man, which is how danger hides. Ronan didn't raise his voice. Who paid you? The driver's jaw clenched. No one, boss. Ronan held up the burner phone. You used your second phone to contact the Vale Syndicate. The driver's face flickered, just a flash of fear. Ronan leaned forward slightly. I don't need you to confess. I need you to understand this. You endangered someone under my protection. The driver's voice shook. I had to. Ronan lifted a hand. Take him out, he told the guards, and remove his access. The guards led the driver away. There was no screaming, no dramatic violence, just consequence. I trembled, and I hated myself for it. Not because I was sad for the driver, because I understood how quickly a person becomes a line item in this world. Ronan turned to me again. You're safe here. For how long? I asked. Ronan's eyes were steady. As long as you keep choosing truth over fear. I swallowed hard. They'll try again. Yes, Ronan said. And next time they'll come harder, because tonight you ruined their plan. Maris approached with another envelope, sealed. Ronan took it, then offered it to me. What is it? I asked. An exit plan, Ronan said simply. New identity. Travel documents. A route out. My fingers hovered over the envelope. You're giving me a way to leave? I'm giving you a choice, he replied. Because loyalty bought with a locked door isn't loyalty. I stared at him. The dark offer had been control. But this was something else. A test. A line in the sand. If I took it and ran, I'd be alive, maybe. But I'd also be exactly what Serena wanted me to be. A weakness that forced Ronan to tighten his grip on everyone else. If I stayed in danger. But I also stayed in control of my decision. I pushed the envelope back gently. Not tonight. Ronan watched me, unreadable. I'm tired of running from my father's choices, I said. This time I'm making my own.